We got to start in the obvious best college football conference that's out there, right? The one that's the undisputed greatest conference. I'm talking about the Big Ten, baby.
Mm. All right. Well, let's start in
Let's
the
get
Big
heated
Ten.
with it. Sorry about it, SEC fans.
Hey, they can't really say anything. Hey, did you know this was the first time in a decade that the SEC did not win either a football or men's basketball title?
Huh.
That
Interesting.
that that was official. I guess it was official when the last SEC team was eliminated. I can't remember if that was a Sweet 16 or Elite Eight, but
Interesting.
became officially official Monday night when Michigan got the Big Ten double dip, and I guess triple dip if you count women's basketball because
Yeah.
UCLA won the women's
There
title.
you
So
go. Yeah, they're
Big
dominating. They're
Ten.
just the best conference at all things. It's good to be in the Big Ten. It's maybe not so good to be, down here in the South.
Hey, it's everything's coming up Big Ten right now. It's really hard to deny. But let's start out with our positive picks. We're gonna pick a couple teams that we think are going to beat their win total. Garrett, this felt like low hanging fruit to me, if I'm being honest. I looked at this board, I looked up and down, tried to find the one that I was most confident in going over. And I think I got to go with the Indiana Hoosiers. And their win total right now, as we sit in April, is 10.5. And if you told somebody 5 or 6 years ago, I know we beat this story to death, but we're going to beat it to death one more time. If you told somebody 5 or 6 years ago that you think it would lock that Indiana would win 11 games, 11 football games, American football games, they'd look at you like you're crazy. But of course, we're living in a new reality. It's Kurt Signetti's world, and we're just living in it. But Garrett, you look at their schedule, and it's really, really setting up nicely for another run back to the college football playoff, another preferred seed in the college football playoff with maybe getting that bye. There's not a power conference out of conference game. Much has been made about that. It's North Texas, Howard, and Western Kentucky in the non-conference. But then you look at their conference opponents. Tough back-to-back stretch in October with Ohio State coming to Bloomington and then going to the Big House to face Michigan. But after that, you have a couple tough back-to-backs with the West Coast teams, but it's USC coming into traveling east. We know that USC does not typically perform well when they travel
They
east.
do not.
And then going out west to Washington, a team, spoiler, that I'll talk about here in just a second. That's going to be tough, a very tough road environment. But you're telling me that they need to go 3-1 in those games. But anybody that watched the Hoosiers on the field last year, I think would say, yeah, they got a pretty good chance of going at least 3-1 in those games.
Yeah, and I think not to be super disrespectful, but it feels like this whole thing just comes down to that 2 week stretch in October, right? Like, as much as we want to maybe say like USC could be tricky or like, Washington might give them a fight. It's always tough to go to Seattle. I don't think a lot of people think that Indiana realistically drops that game. Ohio State's obviously a huge, like massive profile matchup. And then to chase that one with a trip to the Big House is obviously tricky, right? So I think that's where a lot of people are maybe putting the two losses or if it's not Michigan, it's an accidental slip up somewhere else, right? I think that's probably where they put the two losses to make this line. I honestly like it's really hard to see how they drop both of those games, right? Like, I think we've come to kind of just understand that we can trust Indiana, right? Like, could they theoretically like beat Ohio State, have a little bit of a hangover, drop a game at Michigan? Sure, like that's possible. Do they drop both? Nah, I don't think so. I really just don't think they drop both those games. Even if they drop Ohio State, which again, like it's possible, Ohio State's a very good football team. Uh, do you follow that up with a second straight loss at Michigan? No, I think they come back focused and they beat the brakes off everybody on the way out. It's a disciplined Indiana team. They know what they want. It's probably even more talented this year than it was last year, dare I say. Yeah, it's going to be a fun team to continue to watch its ascension. And it's weird to say that, yeah, this is a continually ascending team, considering we're talking about our defending champs. But I do think that this is still a program in ascension. We're just going to have to see how high they can go at this point.
They're the most likely team to be the next dynasty at this
Oh
point,
yeah,
right? Would you say that?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I think
by
I
far. I
think
think it's not even close.
I think that's where I'm at with Indiana too. I think that just what they did, we can't say enough good things about it. They reloaded in the portal and they have a seemingly bottomless war chest to keep those players coming in. And Kurt Signetti, you mentioned maybe they stubbed their toe somewhere. Kurt Signetti does not seem like a coach that's going to stub his toe against an overmatched opponent, at least at this point in his Indiana career. So yeah, I'm going to ride with the Hoosiers to go over 10.5. Who is your over pick, Garrett?
So I was looking up and down this Big Ten number, and I was kind of starting to think like, oh, that's a decent number. I saw Illinois at 7.5, and I thought that was a little interesting. I was like, yeah, I don't really know if I believe in it though. Maybe it's a 1 year thing. UCLA is tempting right at the 5.5. Okay, like they got a new coach, and then my eyes landed on Ohio State at 9.5, and I was just kind of like shocked. I was like, I'm sorry, we're talking about the Ohio State University, and I know that I am noted Ohio State hater on this podcast, but we at a certain point we have to come over here and just say, look, we're being a little disrespectful. I'm kind of pulling this up real quick. The last time that Ohio State failed to hit that mark, I guess technically would have been 2020 when they went 7-1 because they didn't play enough games. If you want to go back even further than that, I guess they went 6-7 back in 2011. Guys, they're gonna hit that mark. They just are. They're just gonna hit their mark. They win games. They win lots of football games. That you're asking for 10 wins from Ohio State. This seems like a given thing. Even go back further than that. You got to go back to 2004 when they went 8-4. Other than that, they're hitting 10 wins every year. Like, what are we talking about at Ohio State being? I don't even have to break down the team. I don't have to talk about how well they got great, receivers and they've got a great quarterback and they're obviously going to be really good on defense and da 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 da. I could go through the whole thing. I don't need to though. All I have to say is it's the Ohio State University. It's the Buckeyes. They're going to win 10 games. They could have a down year. There could be other teams that are really good, right? We just talked about Indiana. They could be really, really good. You could convince me something about Oregon or something about Michigan or all those teams that you could start to talk about. And yeah, it's a little bit of a tough schedule, but you talk about, they're playing the Texas Longhorns, they're playing the Iowa Hawkeyes, they're playing Indiana, like we just said. They're not going to drop
all the way down that. Hold on, I'm going to stop you right there.
No, I'll go through it. Okay,
go all the way down.
Well, I just mentioned some of them. Okay, they get Texas. You want to count Illinois? I get. We're obviously not talking Ball State and Kent State. We're not talking those as losses. But
I want you to look. I want you to look from October 17th onward.
Yeah, Indiana, USC, Oregon, Northwestern, Nebraska, Michigan. They're winning 10 games next year. They're winning 10 games next year. Man. It's the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're winning 10 games.
I know.
Like you can't.
I know it's Ohio State.
You really can't do that for anybody in college football except for Nick Saban's Alabama, and like it's Ohio State. Like they just don't lose that many games. Like, and this is over multiple coaches, over lots of different assistant coaches, different offensive coordinators, different defensive. You're gonna tell me that Brian Hartline left, and I'm gonna boo-hoo, and we're gonna talk about how somehow the offense is going to drop off, even though Brian Hartline didn't make that offense what it was. He was a big factor in it. He recruited the receivers. It's great. Brian Hartline ain't the reason why Ohio State goes round. Ohio State goes round because Ohio State goes round. That's just how it works for them. So, look, as much as you may love or hate them, the Buckeyes seem like Thanos. They are inevitable. Okay, they're going to win 10 games. You could even tell me that they go 10-2, and I'd be like, yeah, probably. Like do you think you're getting through that entire schedule unscathed? No, I don't think so. But like out of all those games, you're saying, so what? Texas, Iowa, Indiana, Oregon, Michigan, maybe USC. You're telling me they got to find a way to go 4-2 in those games to hit this? Like, yeah, that's fine. That's Ohio State.
Man, I look at that schedule and I think it might end up being one of the toughest of all time by the time it's said and done. And that doesn't mean that Ohio State can't go 10-2. Yeah. I think, and the betting lines would tell you that the juice is in favor of it going 10-2, right? It's minus 158 to bet the over there.
And something I wanted to say on that too, if this is as hard as the schedule is and they do stomp this schedule, go 12-0, grab themselves a 1 seed, maybe go win themselves another championship, like we better start talking about like potential greatest all-time team type of situation. We can't have the Ohio State standard like melt that, right? Because we just kind of are used to Ohio State being good, like I was just saying. But if they pull something like that off and they just do what Ohio State has done year after year and just beat the crap out of everybody on their schedule and just find their way through, yeah, this has potential like greatest resume of all time type situations on it.
No doubt. You especially like you look at that back half of the schedule and you said it, but I'll just read it again. At Indiana, at USC, a bye week between those two games. Then you come home to play Oregon, Northwestern, Nebraska. I don't think that those are going to be on Ohio State's level, but traveling to Lincoln is never easy. And then the game which they got that monkey off their back this past
Yeah,
year, but it's always
it's
going
a
to
big
be
deal.
a very difficult game. So yeah, I think I'm with you, and I would, if someone forced me to put money on it, Ohio State has the pedigree to where I'm going to trust them to go 10-2 against that schedule until
Hmm.
proven otherwise. But man,
Yeah.
10-2 should be a top 5 seed in the college football playoff if they
Well,
pull it off against that schedule.
and just looking at this schedule, I think this is going to be the hot take of the summer. I think everyone's going to talk about how Ohio State's going to go 8-4. They're not even going to make the play. Like, it's going to be every hot take artist that's going to want to get out there and just, shout that Ohio State's not going to be able to do it this year. And they're going to break down how somehow there's some advanced stat that proves that they're not very good. I'm just going to let you know right now, Trey, I'm going to hot take disapprove every single hot take artist that does that over the summer, because it's going to be real popular and this, and I might even pick them eventually. Like, when you really put my feet to the fire, I might even eventually pick them at 10-2, or bordering on a 9-3 after I've done everything. I get it, but you can come back and hold my feet to this. They're going to go 10-2. Like, that's just what they do. They just find a way to win 10 games. Maybe that's not technically good enough for the playoffs. If there's a bunch of 11-1s this year or something like that, I couldn't possibly make that case at all. I think that even if my team's involved, I probably still have to say, yeah, I think you give Ohio State this one, because it's a remarkable schedule they're going up against, and they will have multiple signature wins by the time all this is done.
Well, let's go to the negative side on the Big Ten. Let's talk about a couple teams we are putting the under on right now. And I'm going to go to the other side of that big game rivalry. I'm going to go with the Michigan Wolverines. And for as confident as you are in the Buckeyes, Garrett, I am probably equally concerned with Michigan going into this season. My maybe hot take, I've seen the Wolverines usually up around the top 15 in the way too early top 25s at this point of the year. I'm really concerned about Michigan on the field this fall. You have so much turmoil. I know you're bringing in Kyle Whittingham, who is like the epitome of stability. Perfect coach to bring into this situation, right? But you look at the turnover on the roster. Yes, they were able to keep Bryce Underwood. Yes, they were able to keep some important pieces on the defense. And yes, they were able to bring in some nice pieces from Kyle Whittingham's former team, the Utah Utes. But I look at all the turmoil and just messiness of that situation. And I combine that with the fact that I'm not 100% sure Bryce Underwood is going to be the guy to lead Michigan all the way back to the college football playoff, at least at this point in his career. I know you can make a massive jump from freshman year to sophomore year. I know that that is more than possible. We've seen that a ton of talented quarterbacks like Bryce Underwood is make that jump from freshman to sophomore year. But it's also April, and I haven't seen it yet. So as of right now, the line's 8.5. I'm going to say Michigan goes under that 8.5. You look at their schedule, they host Oklahoma, a team that's fresh off a college football playoff appearance in week 2. That's going to be really difficult. They also draw Iowa, Penn State, Indiana. All those games are at home, but the last couple of years since the championship, it hasn't exactly been as intimidating to play at the Big House as it was when Harbaugh had it running. Then at the end of the year, you go to Oregon, you host a possibly tricky UCLA team that you'll talk about here in a second, and then go to the shoe at Ohio State. That's a lot of losable games. And I think right now, if you force me to bet, I'm going to pick Michigan to go 8-4 or worse in 2026.
Yeah, and I know that a few weeks back we made the case for kind of Michigan/Penn State as kind of a we get these new head coaches in new situations. We're trying to make the case for them, but I think it's valid to voice some concerns over those teams, and which does bring me to my under. I'm going under on Penn State, right? I think that 9.5 is the number for them. You're asking Penn State to get to 10 wins year one under Matt Campbell. I just don't really believe in that. The schedule is soft for Penn State. That's the only thing that they really have going for them. It's you open up with Marshall at Temple and then Buffalo. You get Wisconsin, Northwestern, and then it starts to get a little trickier. You got USC in the middle of the season at Michigan, before you finish with Purdue at Washington, Minnesota, Rutgers, and at Maryland. I think there's a lot of winnable games on that schedule, but it won't be because I think Penn State's a very good team. I think it's because they're just going to have a lot of winnable games on that schedule. But I think that Penn State this year is going to be that team that a lot of either new coaches or maybe coaches on the hot seat you know, the teams that are fighting for their bowl lives. I think that's that one that they can circle as a get up game and kind of find them sleeping a couple times. So, you know, is that going to be, you know, Rutgers towards the end of the year? Is it going to be, you know, Minnesota towards the end of the year? Is it going to be Washington fighting for a bit of a statement? Maybe Wisconsin early is trying to make a little bit of a statement and try to, you know, save some stuff. I don't know what the situation is going to be, but I think that's going to be a big game for a lot of teams just because of what the helmet means and what it means when you're playing Penn State, especially in that conference. I think that's going to be enough of a game to get some people up and excited for. And I think that's going to ultimately be a bad thing for Penn State because I don't think they're going to be able to maintain that focus in year one. Don't really believe in the roster that much right now. Don't really believe in the head coach that much right now. Again, maybe towards the end of the summer you can convince me out of this one. I think 9-3 feels like a little bit of an upper end for where they'll be, and that misses it. So I'm going under on Penn State.
I think Penn State is maybe the team I'm most fascinated in, and maybe the entire country going into preview season this year. You can make the argument, I think, either way and make a really good argument. You just made the argument against them being an elite team. I think that all of those points you say are fair. I would add to it that Matt Campbell has never had this amount of scrutiny and spotlight on what he's doing, right? Like this is you've never been the man that 100,000 plus screaming passionate fans in white have latched their hopes to, right? And that's a lot of pressure, a lot more pressure than Ames. I know they love their football in Ames, but 100,000 people bearing down on every decision you make when they just fired an extremely successful coach is going to be a really interesting situation to drop him in. I will say the pros there are the continuity, right? It's basically the Penn State Cyclones. So they know how to play together. And you mentioned it off the top, the schedule is really easy. I think that if they hit this over, it will probably be a product of that schedule more than anything else. But I don't hate the pick. I think it's perfectly reasonable to be tepid on Penn State as they enter the Matt Campbell era. Now let's have some fun. Let's pick our to the moon picks for the Big Ten. Again, these are teams that are a little bit lower in the conference standings. I gave us a list for the Big Ten. I started at USC at plus 1,500. I wouldn't let us take anybody ahead of that in the odds. And I went all the way down to Nebraska at plus 1,500. And my disclaimer in our doc was you can pick somebody below that, but just go below that at your own peril. Garrett, we'll start with you. Who is your to the moon team?
Sure. I've got a former James Madison head coach who's sitting over here, and you know he's coaching in the Big Ten, looking to make a name for himself.
Nobody's ever done that before.
It seems like uncharted territory, except for the fact that it's extremely recently charted territory. I got UCLA to the moon, man. I think they're going to be fun. You know, I think there's a lot of positives on this for them. I think that they have the potential to be a really, I think fun. Again, I'm not going to say like great team, but I'll say fun team. If you want a team to just kind of watch some rises, I think this is the one. They got a really soft middle of the schedule. You know, obviously, you know, opens, you know, they go to Cal, which could be tricky. They got San Diego State. They got Purdue. They got Maryland. So like you probably end up 3-1, 2-2 somewhere in there. You play Oregon. That's probably not going to go your way. But you get Wisconsin, Michigan State, Nevada, all at home. You go to Minnesota before coming back home for Illinois before you have to close out with Michigan and USC. That could be really fun. Like there could be a lot of wins stacking up. You could find some real momentum in there before a trip to the Big House. I'm not saying they're going to win, you know, all of those games. I'm not going to say that they're going to go win all the games on their schedule. I'm not saying they're going 10-2, but this could be a really fun team that, you know, makes it back to a bowl game, starts to kind of strive for, I don't know, maybe 8 wins. Like, could they get to 8 wins? I think it's possible.
UCLA is plus 1,500 to win the Big Ten, so that would be a massive payout.
That's 1,500?
Or it's 15,000. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I was like, did I get them that good? Okay.
I was told there'd be no math, but it's plus 15,000. So even better.
Carry the zero.
Payoff. Well, I'm going to go to a team that you've heard me talk a lot about over the past 365 days. Garrett, Mitch and I typically have this problem on this show of being a year too early on a team. And I'm going to just bet on that with my to the moon team. I'm going with the Washington Huskies. You're probably rolling your eyes that I am enamored with the Washington Huskies once again. but here we are. And Washington at plus 3,000. I did check the zeros that time. It is plus 3,000, not 30,000.
Yeah.
They're just another team that, if I'm going to bet on a specific position, I'm going to bet on the quarterback and them getting Damon Williams. I know there's that whole situation when the transfer portal opened with a lot of tampering and a lot of unsure deals, whatever. That's all in the past, baby. Damon Williams will be suiting up for the Washington Huskies this year, and he'll once again want to be one of the better quarterbacks in the entire Big Ten. So if you tell me I've got him on my side, I know they lost a lot of skill position help. They lost Damon Williams or Denzel Boston, the wide receiver. Lost a lot of that running back room. They brought in some nice transfers as well. So I'm going to trust Jedd Fisch year 3 to break through and just be a little bit more consistent than last year. Consistency was the problem, especially when they left the Pacific Northwest. Hopefully we can change that this year and let Washington push for a Big Ten championship. They were so close to, I think, truly contending last year. Maybe we'll get it this year, and Mitch and I will just be a year too early.
Yeah, I personally like it. I think it's fun. It does seem to be the case, though, that y'all just seem a little bit early on some of these teams. So, yeah, maybe it is Washington. I think that's what you got to do. You got to start listening to your gut and then put it in the next year's show doc, right?
That's right.
I really believe in this team. I'll stick them in there next year.
If I have a good reason player-wise and those players are still on the team the following year, they're just a year older, year wiser, and we're going to roll with it again.
Apologies to the Indiana Hoosiers for the confidence you just expressed, right? It turns out it's going to be a little bit of a rough year for you guys.
Well, they've already proven it. So
but next year,
this is only teams that are making the jump. They have already proven that they're a juggernaut. So, yeah, Washington, congratulations. You're going to be right back in the thick of things.